You don't suddenly dislike people. You just woke up one day and felt tired in a way rest can't fix. Tired of repeating the same conversations. Tired of explaining yourself. Tired of being in rooms where you laugh, but something inside feels empty. And what's confusing is this. You used to enjoy being around people. So why does it feel different now? Why does your phone stay quiet longer? And somehow that feels peaceful and unsettling at the same time. By the end of this, you'll understand why this shift is happening, why it feels uncomfortable before it feels powerful, and what this stage is quietly preparing you for, even if it doesn't look like progress yet. At first, the change is subtle. You still go out. You still reply. You still show up. But something inside you is no longer fully there. Your attention drifts faster. Your patience runs out quicker, not because people became worse, but because your awareness became sharper. You start noticing how many interactions are built on distraction instead of connection. How many conversations never move forward, only sideways. And once you see that, it becomes hard to pretend you don't. But what most people don't realize is that this is only the surface of what's happening, and the deeper reason hasn't shown itself yet. Then comes the phase where silence feels better than noise. Not lonely silence, clean silence, the kind where your mind finally gets space to breathe. You start choosing quiet nights over crowded plans. You start saying maybe next time and meaning it. And while part of you enjoys this new calm, another part starts asking questions. Am I becoming antisocial? Am I losing people? Is something wrong with me? But here's what no one tells you. Sometimes you don't withdraw because you're broken. You withdraw because you're rebuilding. And that rebuilding phase is doing something very specific to your social world. Something that becomes clearer the longer you stay in it. As your inner world changes, your tolerance changes too. You notice how draining certain dynamics feel. How some people only connect through complaining, gossip, or competition. How some conversations feel like emotional fast food, quick, addictive, and empty 5 minutes later. You don't judge it. You just don't crave it anymore. And when your cravings change, your social habits change automatically. This is usually when people say you've changed. And they're right. But what they don't see is why you changed, and what that change is quietly protecting you from. There's another layer to this tiredness that few people talk about. You start becoming more aware of emotional energy, not in a dramatic way, in a practical way. You feel how moods spread in rooms, how stress jumps from person to person, how negativity can pull your focus down without you even noticing. So now your system becomes selective. It doesn't want to absorb everything anymore. It starts choosing environments instead of just accepting them. And that selectiveness can look like distance to others, but to you it feels like survival. Yet even this isn't the main reason you're pulling back. The deeper reason is still unfolding. At this stage, something uncomfortable begins to happen. You start seeing your old patterns clearly. Why you used to overgive. Why you stayed in situations that drained you. Why you said yes when you wanted to say no. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. So being around people now doesn't just remind you of them. It reminds you of who you used to be with them. And that can feel strange, because you're no longer that person. But people may still expect that version of you to show up. This mismatch creates a quiet tension that you feel, even if no one says anything. And that tension is one of the biggest reasons social situations suddenly feel exhausting, even when nothing bad is happening. Here's where it gets interesting. You're not just distancing from others. You're also meeting yourself more. Your thoughts get louder. Your dreams feel more personal. Your direction starts forming, even if it's still unclear. And when that inner voice gets stronger, shallow distractions become harder to tolerate. You don't want to talk about nothing when your mind is asking bigger questions. You don't want to spend hours scrolling conversations when you feel pulled toward growth, change, or focus. This doesn't mean you think you're better than others. It means you're becoming more aligned with where you're going, even if you can't fully explain where that is yet. Then comes the phase that confuses almost everyone. You feel lonely, but you also don't want company. You miss connection, but not random connection. You crave depth, but you don't want to force it. So you sit in this strange middle space where you're not fully satisfied alone but not fulfilled socially either. And this is usually when people think something has gone wrong with their personality. But this middle space is actually a transition zone. Old relationships no longer fit, and new aligned connections haven't arrived yet. It feels empty, but it's actually clearing space. And what fills that space later depends on what you do during this quiet phase, which is why this part matters more than it seems. Another shift happens that most people mistake for boredom. Your brain stops craving constant stimulation. You don't need endless stories, opinions, and noise anymore. You start enjoying simplicity. Short conversations, focused work, being present without multitasking, and when your nervous system calms down, chaotic environments feel louder than they used to. So your body responds before your mind even explains it. You get tired faster. You leave earlier. You choose peace over performance. Not because you're avoiding life, but because you're learning how you actually function best. And that realization quietly changes the kind of social life you can sustain long term. But there's still one more reason this tiredness shows up, and this one surprises people. You start becoming more honest with yourself about what you want, about what you tolerate, about what you no longer find meaningful. And honesty changes everything. Because once you admit that certain interactions don't serve you anymore, pretending becomes exhausting. Smiling when you don't mean it, listening to stories you've outgrown, playing roles you no longer recognize, all of that starts feeling heavy. So your system chooses withdrawal over performance. Not because you want to disappear, but because you refuse to keep acting like someone you're not anymore. This is also when your standards quietly rise. Not just for others, but for yourself. You start wanting conversations that challenge you, not just entertain you. People who grow, not just repeat cycles. Energy that feels supportive, not draining. And when those standards rise, your social circle naturally gets smaller before it gets stronger. This shrinking phase can feel like loss, but it's actually refinement. You're filtering. You're becoming selective. You're choosing quality over quantity without announcing it. And that choice reshapes your entire social experience, slowly but permanently. Here's the part that brings everything together. You're not tired of people. You're tired of misalignment. You're tired of being in places that don't match who you're becoming. You're tired of conversations that don't feed your growth. You're tired of giving energy where there's no exchange. So your system pulls you back, not to isolate you, but to recalibrate you, to help you figure out what kind of connections you actually want moving forward. Because once that becomes clear, the exhaustion fades and something much better replaces it. And that's when a shift happens. You stop chasing connection. You start attracting alignment. You stop forcing plans. You start flowing into meaningful moments. You stop explaining yourself to people who don't understand your direction. You start meeting people who recognize it instantly. And suddenly social energy doesn't drain you anymore. It fuels you. But that phase only arrives after you respect this quiet, selective stage instead of fighting it. If you've been feeling tired of people lately, it doesn't mean you're becoming cold. It means you're becoming conscious. You're learning what your time is worth, what your focus deserves, what kind of energy helps you grow instead of keeping you busy. And this phase isn't here to isolate you forever. It's here to reset how you connect, who you connect with, and why you connect at all. So the next time you choose a quiet night over a crowded room, don't judge yourself. You're not disappearing from life. You're realigning with it. And when you do step back into deeper connections, you'll notice something powerful. You won't feel drained anymore. You'll feel understood, supported, and genuinely alive in the presence of the right people. If this connected with you, thank you for staying until the end. It tells me you're someone who pays attention to what's happening inside, not just what's happening around you. Like the video and subscribe if you want more content that speaks to this stage of growth, clarity, and self-mastery. And remember, you're not pulling away from people. You're moving closer to the life that actually fits you.